going to start with the box that the album is going to be in. And so you might want to get a notebook and jot down these measurements. We're going to start with the chipboard measurements. You'll need 2 that are 6 by 4, 2 that are 2.5 by 4, 1 that is 6 by 2.5. You're going to place score tape on the back of those. And I do full coverage on the box chipboard, okay? For the paper to wrap the chipboard, you'll need 2 that are 8 by 6, 2 that are 5.5 by 6, 1 that is 8 by 4.5. So when we make this box, I'm going to start with the 6 by 4 piece, and I did wrap 1, and you'll notice I wrapped it on 3 sides and not the bottom. Okay, we're going to do that with all 4 of our pieces. Here's my 5.5 or my 2.5 by 4 piece, and I wrapped it on 1 side because this is going to be our connector piece. And so what's going to happen is, as we attach these, the bottom is going to come together in 4 pieces so that we can place our chipboard bottom, and then we'll put paper on the inside to cover that up, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and show you, first of all, how to wrap it on all 4 sides. So the only piece that we wrap on all 4 sides is the 6 by 2.5 piece. So you're going to grab your 8 by 4.5 inch piece of paper. You're going to want a 1-inch border on all sides. So I'm going to use my acrylic template from Country Craft Creations. I'm going to go ahead and take off the backing of my score tape. I did burnish it to make sure that the tape would stay on and just the backing would come off. And just place that like so. Okay. So you do want to burnish this to make sure that it has a nice smooth stick here. And you want to bend the paper so it knows where it's supposed to go. So we bring it up and over on the chipboard. Then you take your burnishing tool and you flatten out those sides. And we're going to do that on all 4. So we're going to continue to bring the paper up and over the chipboard, and then we smooth it with our burnishing tool. Now I do like crisp edges, and so after we do this, I like to take, I have a different burnishing tool for everything I do. So we're just going to rub the bone folder up against the chipboard so it has a nice smooth edge. On all 4 sides. Now you can miter the corners or you can cut out the squares. Normally I miter, but for a box I like to do the squares. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut up to the chipboard and over to take out those squares. I'm going to go up on the score, over on the score. And you do that to all 4 corners. And now we do want to kind of smooth, even it out. So what we're going to do is bend this in and lightly taper. And I'm just kind of resting my scissors on the edge. And I want to do that to all of the edge pieces. Just a slight taper, very slight. Resting your scissors on the chipboard. You don't want to cut too much. one more. Okay, so let's get rid of those little scraps. So when I wrap all 4 sides on a book cover or on a box, I use a combination of score tape and the glue. So I'm going to place 1/4 inch score tape on the perimeter of the chipboard and the paper. And that gives us a nice hold by using a combination of the 2 adhesives. And I'm so used to wrapping all 4 sides that I had to do one of the side pieces and the front pieces ahead of time so I could look at it to remind myself that we don't wrap all of the sides on those. And because I'm doing one with you, I thought it would be faster if I just had one made so you didn't have to sit and watch me do 2. All right. So then again, anytime you're using your score tape, give it a burnish. Whenever you make any kind of book or you want everything to be nice and smooth, okay? So we are going to, I'm going to start with my long sides. Whoopsie. I have a little mess here. Okay. So I'm going to remove the backing. On one side here, the long side. And I am going to lift up the sides a little bit so that they're out of the way. You're going to want to place a line of glue up against the chipboard. And then I put some in between the chipboard and that tape that I already put on. And you can let it sit for a second so that the glue kind of soaks into the fibers of the paper. And then we're going to bring that up and over and smooth it out. So up, over, I kind of start in the middle and branch my hands outward. And then if you have any glue oozing out, I just kind of wipe that up. And you want a smooth edge, so you put it on its side and you just run your bone folder along the edge. And then I work with opposite sides, so now I'll do the other long side. Place your glue along the chipboard, and then some in between the chipboard and the tape. Okay, bring it up and over, kind of smooth it out as you go. Give it that burnish, tip it on its side, and smooth the edge. And I'm doing a dry fit just to make sure that it's cut correctly and it doesn't go over the edge, and it looks good. So now we'll do the same thing on the short ends. Place your glue. Let it sit for a second. Bring it up and over and smooth it out. Put it on its side, smooth out the edge. Last side. And smooth out the edge. This is our base, okay? Now we're gonna do two of these. This is the front and back, the 4x6 piece. So now let's do that. We're gonna wrap it on 3 sides. So grab your one of your 4x6s, or 6x4, because I want you to do the width. I give the measurements for the width and then the height. And the paper you need is the 8x6. We want a 1-inch border on this also. We're going to place the chipboard down just like we did before. And go ahead and smooth it out. We're going to continue to do the same thing we did with the other one, but we're not going to actually wrap all the sides, but we are going to prepare it the same way. And this is going to be the bottom. Remember, the box is going to be like the bottom of a lemonade stand. And then I do like to take my bone folder, my other one, and just kind of bring that paper up against the chipboard. It just helps give it a nice finish on the edges. Okay. Let's cut out the squares. So go up to the corner and over to the corner on your score marks. Do that to all 4 corners. And then we are going to bring our paper over and do our slight miter by resting our scissors on the chipboard and a slight angle cut. Last one. Now sometimes it helps to make a marking on your chipboard so that you don't forget and you don't wrap it by writing yourself a little note like no on the bottom, so that as you are, oh, I didn't trim that one, starting to wrap it, that you don't accidentally forget and do all 4 sides. We don't want that. So let's go ahead and get our score tape. I'm using the 1/4 inch. And then on 1 long side and 2 short sides is where we're going to put the tape. And 2 short sides. So we are going to still do the long side first. smooth that out. Make sure that the adhesive stays on and just the backing comes off. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take the backing off the long side pieces, and then I'm going to lift up the two short sides a little bit to get them out of the way. I mean, you can take it all the way off if you want. And then we're going to do the same thing with our glue as we did the other. Up against the chipboard, and then in between the chipboard and that score tape. And let it sit for a second. Oh, what's that? Okay. And then bring it up and over. If you have any excess, wipe it up. And don't forget to smooth out that side, that edge. Let's do one of the short sides. Like so. And it's kind of soak into the fibers. And smooth. Okay, clean up my mess while I let it sit for a second. Okay, and you'll do both of the 2.5 by 4 pieces like that, and we're leaving the bottom open like so. So you'll have 2 of those. You're going to have 2 of these, so let's do that one next. Grab your 2.5 by 4 and your piece that's 5.5 by 6. Have your 5.5 inches across the top of your scoreboard. And this time, instead of a 1-inch border all around, we want a 1-inch border at the top and a 1.5-inch border on the side. So if you don't have one of these acrylic spacers, you can always use cut out chipboard and use those. You can just use a ruler. It's nice to have extra on the wings here that we attach so that it just gives it a better hold when we are putting our box together. Again, give your paper a memory by folding those and burnishing those sides. And I take the other one and I just kind of rub it up against the chipboard. And this one goes fast because it's only one side that we are going to wrap. The two sides here connect the front and back of the box. Okay. So again, I'm going to cut out the corner pieces. On all 4 corners. Now we have to do our trimming, so we fold it back, rest our scissors, slight miter. Cleaning everything up. All right. So these pieces, we wrap one of the 2.5 inch sides. So we keep the long sides open. So we're just going to do the top. These two sides attached to the sides of the other ones, and this bottom is going to help us attach the bottom piece. Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm still going to use a combination. I'm going to put my score tape on, just the one end. All right, this will be fast. Glue up against the chipboard and on the paper in between. Remove your backing. Okie dokie. And up and over. And get rid of that excess. I think I need a new wet wipe. This one's kind of scurvy looking. Ugh. Okay. And smooth that out. So for those of you who are familiar with making the lay flat method with an album, you know that now we're going to work with it like so. We're going to attach these two pieces. Then we're going to attach another of the 4x6s on this side. And then we'll put the last 2.5 by 4 on the very edge. And then we'll combine them. So what we're going to do is, again, a combination of the score tape and the glue. So I'm going to do all of them at once. I put it close to the chipboard, but not all the way. I leave myself a little bit of a border. And I usually put about 3 strips of tape. Close to the chipboard. I guess I leave about I don't know, 1/8 of an inch space. But on the edge here, I go all the way to the edge on the outer edge. And then in the middle. Let's do that to the other one while we're at it. You become a pro at this after you've made enough albums, because really this is the start of an album. It's just that we're going to come adding an extra spine, and then we're combining it so that all 4 pieces form a rectangular box. Okay, you know the drill. Smooth it out. Okay, so now there's different ways you can attach. You can have it pre-folded and attach it like so, with it already folded, like that. Or you can lay it out flat and do it. I always try to do it with it bent. Sometimes I'm not as good at this part as I wish I was. But let's see how it turns out this time. Ouch, I just poked myself. So we do one of the edges, wings at a time. And then I do come in and put glue. So I have some wiggle room if I need it to move it around. Put a slight amount up here. I'm going to bend it. And then before I push down, I'm just going to make sure I'm happy with the placement. Okay, and I am, so now I burnish. So we want that to dry, and the glue should dry clear. So now we'll attach the next one, like so. And put your glue. And the thin line across the top. I'm going to fold this over. And once I'm happy with it, I'm going to flip it over and burnish that piece down. Okay, almost done with that part. We're going to get one more spine here. Get your glue. Line across the top of the tape. I'm going to bend it. Okay. All right, now before I attach these two pieces together like so, I don't like how that lined up very well. We are going to put some reinforcers so that it gives our box some stability. So we're going to go, if our box is 4 inches, we're going to go about, you know what, let's go 3 7/8, maybe even 3 15/16, because we want it to go all the way to the bottom of the chipboard. It doesn't have to go all the way to the top up here, but we want it to go all the way to the bottom to cover this on our box. So you might want to do 4 and then trim as needed. Let me see how many I'm going to need here. I did not write that down. So I want Oh, we can get away with 3 inches wide. Well, this one's going to be longer. No, it'll be fine. We'll do, I think 3 will be fine. So 3, I'm going to cut them at 3 by 4 first, and then I can go back and change them if I need to. Or just a slight shorter than 4, like 1/16 of an inch. So what we do then is I'm going to put score tape on the back of these, and I'm going to lay this down so that it goes to the bottom of the chipboard, like so, because we want that covered. And then I'll put one here. And this is just giving our box some stability. And then I'm going to I want one here. How wide is this? Is this 4? Yep. Okay. Well, I guess we could have done one long piece, huh? Maybe I'll just do 2 at 3 by 4, and I'll make this one long piece. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me write that down. So the inside of the box, let's go with 2 that are 3 by 4, and it's not really 4, you know, we're going to just trim off a little bit at the bottom. And then, whoopsie. We're going to need this one over here. And this one we're going to make, let's make it about 6 1/4 by 4. And actually, I don't know if this one, I'm just going to have to play it by ear because I can't really remember. Okay, what did I say? 6 1/2. Let me get one more piece. What did I say? 6 1/4 by 4. 6 1/4 by 4. A hair shorter than 4. Okay. So let's go ahead and put adhesive on the back of these. It just is, you can use glue if you want, especially being it's on the inside of the box. You won't see it if it starts to kind of ripple a hair, but I'm going to go ahead and put score sheets on the back of my connecting pieces, and then I'll come back and show you how to attach the box. Okay, I changed my mind. I still am going to take this 6 1/4 by 4 and place it here, but I want to fully cover this spine piece, just so that when we attach our book, it lines up nice and we don't have to worry about our pattern paper. So I went 4 1/4 by 4, a hair less than 4 tall, and 6 1/4. And I don't know what I'm going to do with, I might still need to use that 3-inch piece. Let's see what happens. Okay. So I did put the score tape on the back. I'm going to line up this paper to the bottom of the chipboard, and I'm going to go to the edge of that chipboard. Okay, so I'm going all the way to the edge, all the way to the bottom. I've already smoothed out my score tape. I'm going to do it again. Okay, let's take the backing off. Make sure that this is the 4-inch or the 4 1/4. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going all the way to the bottom and the outside edge. Like so. And I'm just kind of creasing that where it's going to fold. Now let's do the 6 1/4 the same way. We want to place it so it covers the wings and this middle piece, and we take it all the way to the bottom of the chipboard. So all the way to the bottom. And give it a good burnish. And I'm just going to kind of bring it up a little bit. Okay, now we're going to attach the last side. Here. And we want to try and line it up as perfectly as we can so that we have a nice rectangle so our bottom piece fits nice. So let's go ahead and peel off this score tape backing. And get some glue on there also. And I do a line at the top. Now, you can bring it, I don't like doing it like that, never mind. All right, I'm gonna line it up as close. I don't wanna push down until I'm happy with it. I guess I'm gonna have to be happy with it. I started to push down, okay. And we're just gonna go ahead and give that a good burnish on the inside here. Put your hand in there. Okay. I don't think I'm going to use that 3-inch piece. I don't think I need it. If I would, yeah, I don't think I need it. I'm not going to use it. Because we went all the way to the edge of that spine piece, I think we're fine. All right, so now we're going to tuck these pieces in. And then we're going to attach this to the bottom. And it's a hair short. It's not as wide because when we put the chipboard together, it makes it a little bit larger, but it should sit inside of the chipboard pieces. So before I attach it, I'm just going to put some glue on these corner pieces and push down so I can get the perfect shape that I want. Kind of using my scoreboard to bump that up. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it upside down and just kind of burnish it on the inside. Okay. Would that fit on the inside? It's a hair too long. I'm going to put it on the bottom. And now I'm going to put adhesive. You know what? We could do it like this so that the bottom, it doesn't matter. We're going to put paper down there anyway. Okay. And you're going to line it up in between those two chipboard pieces. Like so. I'm going to use glue. And I'm going to be generous. And notice I'm not going all the way to the edge because remember our piece was a little bit shorter. All right, does that look like it's going to work? Well, let's see. Okay, and then once you're happy with where you've placed it, you're going to turn it upside or right side up again and burnish those pieces down. And then I'm going to let mine sit for a while to dry. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. And then we'll put paper on the inside and on the outside to make it look like the lemonade stand. Okay, so we'll set this to the side and then we'll start on the actual album next. So once you have our the box put together, I'm still going to put something on the bottom. I went and used the pink paper because I want it to be lemonade standish, and so there's going to be an awning on the top that's got some pink in it. So I wanted the base to be pink, but I wanted it to look more like a you know, like a regular lemonade stand. So I'm also cutting brown some of the craft artisan, and I'll talk about that in a second. But when you make your book is going to fit pretty tight in here because we want it to stand up straight and look like it's part of the lemonade stand. So you're going to have to be careful with your measurements. I'm hoping that mine is going to fit with no problems, but I did put a paper on the outside 4 and the inside 4, and then I put the same paper at the base, and like I said, I'll put something at the bottom too. But I want it to look like a lemonade stand, so what I did was I took strips that are 1/2 inch by 5 3/4, and I inked them up with the Cappuccino 49 and Market ink. Okay, and then these hopefully will make it look more like a stand. So the book that you're going to make to put in here, I'll give you the measurements for that. I have a video for the lay flat method, and so you can go back and take a look at that. But I will give you the measurements so that you know the sizes. So the chipboard itself, you're going to need 2 that are 5 3/4, and it is 8.5 inches tall. And I'll show this closer to the camera in a second. And then the spine is 2 1/4 by 8.5. So those are the chipboard pieces you need. So our box is 2 1/2. This is 2 1/4. But when you put the book together, you know, you do get a little bit more thickness when you attach your covers. So we're gonna have to be careful and make sure that we cover this in flat. At least the bottom part has to be all flat paper. Now the paper to cover, you go 2 inches larger. So you're gonna go 2 at 7 3/4 by 10 1/2. Whenever you do the spine, you want a larger wing on each side of the spine. So we go 1.5 inches on each side. So we're going to add 3 inches to that 2 1/4 so that we have 5 1/4 by 10 1/2. And then you want to have a paper that covers the inside and gives it stability. And that piece I had was 6 inches by 8 3/8. Actually, you could go to the half and it would be fine too. So the top is chipboard, the bottom is the cardstock. And I will link the video for the lay flat album method in the description box. Okay, so let me show you with the paper put inside and no paper on the album. It's going to be, right now it fits real smooth, but, and this is going to have the awning on the top of the book. But when I add paper to the outside of my book, it's going to be snug. Okay, so let's go ahead and let me talk to you about the slats. I think that's the word you want. I did 5 of them, and they're 1/2 inch, but the front and back are 5 3/4, and the side pieces are 2 3/8. Okay, so what I did to make sure that they are even is I did the bottom, the top, and then a middle piece. And I did, like I said, I inked them. So I have the side, so now I know where to line those up, because I have one side done. Okay, that looks pretty good. Just give it a burnish. Okay, now I want to do a top one. And I just did this. You want to do this for the first one, especially the first side, just to make sure that everything is even. Okay. And then I do a middle one. And I'm looking at this side that I already did so that it matches the front. And it's okay if they're off a little bit, because it's supposed to, look like wood, and so, it's not necessarily going to be perfect. Instead of a straight edge, you could also kind of make it rough if you would like. I've seen that done before. And then we can go put in the extra 2 in between. Now, I don't usually decorate on camera, but I will show you what I plan on doing for the front here in just a second. As of now, anyway. We'll see if that ends up changing once I start making the book. And then I'll go back and do the other side, that short side. Now that you have the measurements and you see how I started it initially with top, bottom, middle, and then place the 2 center pieces in. So I'll go back and do this side. But my thoughts are to have a banner like so, just kind of off to the side here. And then I did cut some smaller ones to kind of go in between with the base paper I used. And then I'll have twine in a bow. And then I do want something down here, a saying. I didn't see one that said lemonade stand. So I am going to, where did it go? I had one. Oh, here it is. I'll probably have something like this. And then I'll add some of those Prima flowers. And I don't know if I'm going to go with flowers on both sides or just one, but that's originally what I'm thinking will be the base. Okay, so I did mat my flags using that lemon shimmer paper, so it kind of gives it a pop. And so now, after I finish the box, we're going to go ahead and do the album. This is what I plan to put on the front of the album. Where'd I put my album? And like I said, I want there to be an awning so it looks like an actual lemonade stand. Can't see what I'm doing. Why? I'm gonna have to... What is the deal? Okay. It's pretty tight. This will be here, and then there'll be an awning, a three-dimensional awning coming out. Okay, so that's the plan. Now I'm just going to prep things and get them ready, and we'll continue. All right, so let me go over a couple of things with you now that I have worked through a few of the decorating things. So I went ahead and put the strips on. I'm not going to do anything to the back or the sides, and I did put the banner on the front. This is kind of hard to see, but it says squeeze the day, and I have flowers, and I use some of the enamel dots here on the side. So I put the book in, and it is a tight squeeze, and so here's what I ended up doing. I had to keep putting it in the box to make sure that it was going to fit, and the way I put my box together, it just so happens one side is a little bit thicker than or wider than the other. So it turned out fine for me because then the side with the spine actually fits in, okay? So what I would suggest is either you make your spine a little bit smaller on your book or you make the box just a hair wider. That would be my thinking. So what I did then to cover this is I was nervous about it getting too thick. I just did the plain blue on the back. I'll probably put a sticker or something near the top, not the bottom. I layer this with white first, and it's the 65-pound white. I thought maybe by using the thinner paper that would help also. I did the same thing on the front. This is the 65-pound. I put the cardstock on, the craft cardstock, to represent the lemonade stand at the bottom so that when you take the book out, it still looks like a lemonade stand. Took 1/2-inch strips and glued those on and used some of the stickers here. Now, I made a little banner that I'm going to put on, like, originally I was going to have it so that you could see this yellow strip, but it just doesn't hang very nice. It's not the effect I wanted. So I'm going to tuck that under, glue that 1/2-inch strip down, and then it's going to stand out a little bit more like what I was looking for. Okay, I'll have to work with it a little bit. So I'm going to show you how I did. This is easy, but I want to show you how I did that. So I took a 2-inch strip of paper, and how wide is this? Like 5 3/4, something like that. It ended up being about 5 5/8. And I scored it on the 2-inch side. I scored it at 1/2. And then at 1 3/4, I believe. No, let's do 1 5/8. Okay, and that's all the scoring. So the 1/2-inch is what's going to be attached to the book. And then this little flap is so that you can see the drop here. Okay, so I happen to have this punch that I use, but you don't have to have this punch. You can cut out these pieces that I glued on. How wide are they? They're almost a 1/2 inch. I'd say that they're about they're about 3/8 inches wide, and they are about 1 3/4 inches long. Okay, now if you don't have that punch, I just glued. I have a little bit of an overhang. You can see that I didn't glue it all the way to the end. I wanted that to overhang a little bit, and I might go back and add some paper here. I probably will before I glue it to my book. But when I glued it to the edge of that 1/2-inch score, right up to the 1/2 inch, and then I did glue a little bit on the 3/8 inch, and then it hung over. If you don't have that punch, you could also use a strip and then use a circle punch. If you go into the hole from the top and center it where you want, So you don't put it in the normal way. And center it. You can get pretty much the same effect. It might not be perfect, but it would be close enough. Okay, so you could do that if you don't have the right kind of punch. So let me show you just with a couple pieces. So nothing on the 1/2 inch. So I laid it down on the paper and I gave it a bend like so, where the banner or the awning part went over a little bit. Put glue down, left about 1/4 of an inch at the bottom. Glued this to the cardstock. And then I just wrapped that around and held that for a second. Okay, and then you just keep buttoning them up, one right next to the other. So I'll do another one. So I have that bend where it's going to go around the edge. You bump it right up. You can feel the ridge of that first piece. Go to the score. Bump it right up against that other one. Hold on to it for a little bit. And then I came to this side and kind of gave it a burnish. And you keep going all the way down. Okay? And that's how I did my banner. And I used 3 different colors. Okay? I am going to go back and put some paper here and probably here now that I'm going to attach it a little bit differently. But I did have to keep checking it to see if it would fit in the box. And it was getting pretty tight, let me tell you that. So then I'll attach this, and I'm going to put this here. I did a little bit of layering with that sticker. And then you'll be able to see that a little bit better. I'm not going to attach this till I'm done with the inside, though, so that I don't get it messed up. Okay, so that's the banner. Now it's time to work on the inside. I do not want this book to be thick on the inside at all. It has to be able to be either level, you know, straight up and down the covers, or even kind of go in a little bit so that when you put it in the box, it's gonna fit. But how cute is that? And then with this on the top, isn't that adorable? And then this, love it. Okay, so now the next part is going to be the inside. So let's talk hinges. I think I'm gonna have 3 pages. So when you do 3 pages, you'll need a piece that's, each hinge is 1 inch. So there's 3 inches for the 3 pages, and then there's a 1/2 inch gusset in between. So that's another inch. So we need a piece of paper that is 3.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, nope, 4 inches. 4 inches wide. And let's make our pages, the book is 8.5. Let's go 8 inches on our page height. So let me get, I said 4 by 8. This is a little bit bigger than 4. Okay. So let's move that to the side. And you're going to score at every 1/2 inch with the 4 inches across the top. 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5. Okay, every 1/2 inch. I might go over that just one more time. I feel like the craft is a little bit thicker. I could be wrong, but it feels like it. And then my pages are actually going to be pink. Okay, so now let's do our burnishing of the hinge. So we are going to end up gluing the first 2 together, and that's going to be our first page hinge. And then the third one is actually going to be our gusset. Now on this first piece and the last piece, the first rectangle and the last, I'm going to trim just a sliver off just to make sure it lays flat on the book. So just a real skinny sliver. I'll show you. Super thin. Oh. So just a real skinny sliver. And I'll do that on the other end also, just to make sure, like I said, that it lays flat on our book. We don't want it to overhang. That one I barely did anything. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to continue to burnish. So like I said, rectangles 1 and 2 are going to get glued together. The third one is the gusset. Then we're going to do the 4th and 5th one together for the second hinge. Let's see. Give it a good burnish so it smooths it out. And then the last two go together. And I just use glue on this. And then I want to double check that it's going to lay flat. I don't want there to be any overhang. I feel a little overhang on this top part, so I'm going to trim that just a hair. I did not trim it enough on this side. Okay, that should do it. I'm going to feel, once it's folded like this, I want to feel to make sure it doesn't hang over. Now it's fine. So then get your adhesive and glue the first 2 rectangles together. And then I get my dry wet wipe and just make sure if there's any oozing out the end. And I don't mind if it oozes out the end because that just puts a good seal at the end of the hinges so that they stay nice and closed. Okay. Then we're going to skip that 3rd one and glue the 4th and 5th one together. So I use my hand first to kind of smooth it out, and I'm going to lay it down and burnish that. So just keep giving it a real firm burnish so it's very well sealed. And then I'm going to fold it the other direction and do it again. And then our last 2 go together. Push them together. And burnish. And then we'll center this on the spine. Now you have to decide if you want pattern paper on first. And I think I'm just going to put a piece of the pink artisan for covering the spine. Okay. So then we'll center that like so. And now we have plenty of space on either side so our book doesn't get too bulky. But I am going to cut a piece of pink first, and then I will place this on top, and then I'll do my sides. So for the pink, I'm going to measure, it's 2 1/4, so I'll do 2 1/8. And you have to decide if you want to ink. You don't have to. 2 1/8, and our book is 8 1/2, so we're going to go 8 3/8. Okay, and I think I will ink it because I'm going to be inking all the other pages. So I want to stay consistent. Now this is that 100-pound cardstock. That's why I didn't wrap my book with it. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't crack. So I haven't used it to wrap a chipboard. And I think if you get it like a little, like if you mist it with water, that's supposed to help so it doesn't crack. But I didn't want to take a chance, so I didn't do that. But I will use it for my pages. Okay. And then center it. Look at it before you push down. Okay. Have your dry wet wipe handy. Okay, now we're ready to glue on our hinge. And eventually I might go back and put pink in the gussets too, but for now I'm just going to glue it like this. Now, lately I've been putting a strip of paper here to make this more sturdy, and it's easier to glue it to your book. So I'm going to get a piece. Is this long enough? It is. It'll work for me. And I'm going to make it, so it's 1 inch. I'm going to make it about 7/8 inches wide. Let's see. And then I will glue this on here. And it just makes it a little bit easier to put your spine down on your book. Gives it a little stability. And mine doesn't go all the way to the edge. I just had this scrap already, so rather than cut a new piece, it doesn't have to go all the way from top to bottom. Okay. Using my hands to make sure it's not going off the edge. You don't want it to be seen. And then I'll just use my fingers first in the gusset to burnish that. And now it's going to be easier to put that on our book. Like so. And you just want to center that. And don't be afraid to add quite a bit of glue. You don't want anything happening to your spine. Or your hinge, I mean. I want it to be real secure, being that's going to get a workout with the pages being turned back and forth. Okay. once you see where you like it, start burnishing it down real well. All right. Wipe up the excess glue. It does dry clear if you're using the art glitter glue. All right, nice. Okay, we're gonna let that dry. And now we're gonna do the construction of the 3 pages. And so I'll get those measurements written down and I will show you how to do the pages. Okay, measurements that you're gonna need next. For the base pages, 3 that are 5.5 by 8, 3 that are 5.5 by 9. Now you might wanna go 9 1/8 because once we score that and bend it over, you lose a little bit. So just to be on the safe side, you might wanna make those 3 that you're cutting at 9 1/8 instead of 9. Next, for the inside and covers, both front and back, you'll need 4 that are 3 1/4 by 8 3/8 and 6 that are 4.5 by 2 1/4. Okay, so let me show you the back cover, or the inside back cover. So right now we have 3 little tags and then the doors that open. And I did put white on the back of those little tags or flags or pennants, whatever you want to call it. And then we have a nice place for a 4x6 photo. And then you can add either 2x3 pictures here, or you could add some journaling if you want to add some white on here. And then I didn't like how it kind of flapped open, so I just got a paper clip and put some of the seam binding on here. And we'll just attach it like that so that it stays closed. We're gonna do the same thing up here, just doing different papers. So let's go ahead and get our papers prepped. Let's start with our 3 1/4 by 8 3/8 inch pieces. We only need to make 1 score, and that is with the 3 1/4 across the top, just score to half. That's all you have to do. Do that to all 4 of them. And there's no scoring on the 4.5 by 2 1/4, but there is cutting. And then on all of the pieces that were 5.5 by 8, you do no scoring. The ones that are 5.5 by 9 1/8, with the 9 1/8 across the top, score it a half on each end. And I'm doing these pages so that they're open on the side, not the top. Okay? So you are going to want to burnish all of your score marks for all of those. And I'm going to do the inside cover first, and then we'll put the pages in. All right, so I'll move those off to the side. And let's go ahead and burnish. I already did 1. Okay, so these are our 2 flaps. So before I put them in the book, I'm going to go ahead and cover these. I'm going to mat them before we put the pennant flag thingies on there. And so I did a layer of white, or a mat with white, and then I put my pattern paper. So I already put those together. So the white pieces are 2.5 by 8 1/8. And then the pattern paper is 2 1/4 by 7 7/8. Okay, so I'm going to place those before we can put the other these 3 pieces on. We need to put our pattern paper on these. So let me go ahead and do that. That's why I prepped those ahead of time. And whenever you watch my videos, a good idea is to have pen and paper nearby so you can write down those measurements. Okay. And we just want to center that on the page, the flap. Any glue, wipe it up that comes out. Okay, there's one. And now this one, you have to have the tag or the 1/2-inch piece on your right, because you need one on the right and one on the left. And we'll glue the second one on that one. Again, I did ink my edges first. Okay. There we go. And it is easier to do your matting, I think, before you put it in your book. So I'm also going to do the back side of our flap. And so I already cut those. I'm not double matting those. And I cut these at 2.5 by 8 1/8. So the size of the white. Let's see. So I feel like I did one of these upside down. Shucks. I guess it doesn't matter too much. Which one do I do? I think I'll put them like this. They'll be covered by the doors anyway, or the flaps. I wish I would have watched that a little bit more carefully. Okay, so let's put that back on. And just go ahead and center it on the page. And burnish it like always. Okay. And now the next one. Now, I'm not going to pretend like cutting the papers for those little flag pieces is going to be fun. I actually have some dies, but I did not use those because I know not everybody has the dies. And so I thought, well, I'll just do it the same way for you guys that don't have a cutting machine. Okay. Get those down real well. So we will be attaching those here. The pieces that are 4.5 by 2 1/4. So I'm going to measure one, and then I will use that as a guide for the next ones. So if our paper is 2 1/4, the center is going to be 1 1/8. And I want to go 3/4 inches up from the bottom. Where's my pencil? There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go 3/4 inches up, and I'm using my board to help me because it's got the lines on it, and I'm going to center it. So let's see, 1, 2 on this white line, and I want it so that there's like 1 1/16 on each side, or is it 1 1/8? 1 1/8. Okay. And that looks good. I'm going to put a dot right there in the center. And then I'm just going to take my blade and I'm going to cut from that center down to the corner. So I'm going to put the blade there and line up my ruler. That was not good. I did not follow that line very well. So now this is going to be my pattern piece for the other ones. So what I will do is I'll just trace it so I have a general idea. And I'll go back and erase. Oopsie, see, be careful. And I will cut inside of the line. And they don't have to be 100% the same. Okay, and then let's get our eraser and get rid of those pencil marks. And let's do the last one. Okay. All right. So they should be close. They may not be exactly the same, but they're pretty stinking close. So for the pattern paper, on the front, I'm going to have two, the opposite of my back page. So I'm going to have the top and the bottom one having the fishtail on going to the right, and the one in the center is going to go on the right-hand side, and the fishtail is pointing to the left. So I actually cut the paper the same length, but not the same width. Okay, so when you do this, I'm going to, let me tell you what they did measure. They were 4.5 long and 2 1/8 wide. So I'm going to place this and center it where it would be. It's all the way to the end. Straighten it out. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to draw the line. I'm going to cut right on top of it. Okay, and then I'm going to move it up. So now that I have to cut it, I'm going to cut the top part, not that bottom that we've pre-cut. So I'm going to take about, what, 1/8 of an inch? Let's see. Closer to 1/4. Let me just see. So it was at 4 1/2. I'm going to go to 4 3/8 and see what that does. I think I need to do a hair more. Yep, that's better. So then I'm going to ink these. And glue them on. Now you have to watch the direction of your paper because they are going sideways, not up and down. So you don't want to cut your bows going this way. They have to go that way for the 2 1/4. Or whatever that measurement was I gave you now. I don't remember. Okay, that's close enough for me. And I did wrap some twine on the edges. And I don't think I have enough of this color. See, I did the 3 ends. So I might have to substitute a different color. Okay, so that one's done. Okay, so remember I'm having 2 this way and 1 going the other way. So I'm lining it up at the end. Okay, flip it over. Cut on that line, maybe just a smidge above. Let's see how that lines up. They're not perfect, but that's to be expected. I don't like that one. Let's see, maybe this way. Yep, there we go. Much better. Okay, let me take a little bit off the end. There we go, nice. Ink your edges. Okay, and then we just have one more to do. No, I want it to go this way. Right? Yes. Okay, that one turned out better than the other one. I wonder if I didn't flip that one the way I should have. Yeah, that one looks pretty good. Okay, last one. So I'm lining it up from the very end. Drawing my line. Cutting right above it. I think that's what I did wrong on the other one. I don't think I flipped it. That one looks okay too. Let me take a little off the end here. Yep, good deal. Yep, that one I didn't reverse. That's why it doesn't look exactly right. Okay. So I'm wondering if I have twine. I might have to, I don't know if I have a color that will match. I'll have to check my stash. If not, I'll have to do something different, but I kind of want it to be the same idea. So let me see. I don't have, this is what I have left. Unless I just did bows instead of wrapping. I kind of want to mimic it though. Yeah, let me see what I have. don't think I have black. Not black. I have dark green. I don't think that'll match. I have brown. I'm kind of stuck here. Well, you know what? I think hold the phone. Maybe I have brown and green. Oh, that's black. I don't think I like that. Well, that green does go okay. I'm using the green. I'm using the green. Now let's hope there's enough. If not, I'll do it on 2 and then do this one in pink. So I wrap it around. I leave a little tail to tie a bow, and I just wrapped it around once, and then I'm going to cut after I make the bow. Okay, now I am the world's worst bow maker. I don't know if my fingers just get in the way or what the deal is. But it doesn't stay tight when I do this. I need another set of hands. Okay, that one didn't turn out too bad. And I'm going to put a little dab of glue so that it stays down. So that worked out pretty good. And I'm just going to put a little dab underneath. So that it stays. Okay, let's do this one. Because I might have to go, yeah, I think I'm going to have to use that peach color for one of them. Oh, yikes. This could be interesting. It's going to be a close one. Ay, ay, ay. Let's see if I can do it. This is going to be tight. This is going to be close. Ooh, too close. Come on. Where'd it go? Okay, now let me adjust. I can't believe I got it exactly the right. Yikes, that was close. Okay. Little dab of glue. All right, and now this one will have to have the peachy color, and that's okay. I wish I had enough of the peach color to do all of them that way. I do like this color. Peach, salmon, I don't know what color, pink. that's about there. All right. And pull it tight. I think one of my strings is way bigger or longer than the other one. That's gonna have to work. And a dab of glue. Okay. There we go. Nice. Good thing I had a little extra. So let's let these dry for a second. Get our book. We're gonna glue almost all the way to the edge. And I want to make sure I have the same distance top and bottom, but I'm pretty close to the edge here. So I'm going to put my glue on the 1/2 inch that we folded back. Looks pretty good like that. So press down real good, then open it up and give it another burnish, and I'm going to wipe up that excess glue. Okay, now let's put the other one down. So I'm going to turn it. And there should be a little space in between the doors. That was on purpose. Putting glue on the 1/2 inch. All right. Make sure you don't go over the spine. All right. Here we go. Give it a burnish. And because I'm still letting those dry, I'm going to go ahead and put in the inside. And so this will go in between these two. Again, make sure you don't go over any of the sides here. And you'll have to measure yours separate depending on how far away you put your doors, your flaps. It might not be the same measurement as mine. Okay. There we go. That worked out good. I'm doing this, what time is it? It's 1:45 a.m. So I'm not talking too loud. I don't want to wake anybody up. Tomorrow is Memorial Day, so I don't have to go to work. So I am enjoying my day or night or early morning crafting. Okay, and I also cut a white piece that was 4 1/8 by 6 1/8, and then glittery yellow, that lemon burst or whatever it was called, that is at 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. So we can get a 4 by 6 picture on here with a nice border. I need to fill my glue bottle. And I'm just going to kind of center it, but put it more toward the top. And then I did get a sticker. It says Hello Sunshine. And I'm going to put that, and I matted it on white and then on the sparkly yellow. And I'm just going to place that down here. Center it. Okay, so now we can put the doors on. And now that I have these, I can use those to kind of use as an, to make sure they get lined up. You don't put glue on the whole thing, just enough to get on that door. So I'm gonna say about here. So I'm gonna put glue on this section. Even on the twine. About like that, I think. And I might have to go back, I did on the other one, and have to add a little bit more glue. So let's see. That one's okay, I think. Maybe just a little bit. Okay, then I go to the bottom and I do that one next. And it looks like I went up from the white about 1/2 inch. Okay. Yeah, I need to fill this with glue. So close. That looks about right. See if I need to add glue. No, I think it's okay. And now this one will go here. In the center. Even on the twine, I'm going to put some glue. Let's see, and I might have to add some more to this one. That looks about right. Yeah, perfect. And then I don't like how it kind of goes up and down like that, so I got a paper clip that I added some seam binding to. So for right now, I'll have that off to the side here. And then I put white paper and a sticker on the back here. So you'll have to measure to see how much you like. And then I'll put some stickers on. And then I forgot to put my little flag on here. Just to add a little something something here. I only put glue near the top. Okay, and then we'll come back and do the pages. So I'm ready to show you how to put the pages on. When I started putting the book together, I knew that I wanted side openings, and I don't want them to be so tight because I'm going to be putting a insert in that flips to the outside. And so I did want a 1/2 inch border edge so that I could put something all the way in. So I'm putting these on the hinge a little bit different than I normally do. And I put 2 in just to make sure my thoughts were correct and that I can show you how I did that. So we're going to place the one that has the 1/2 inch pieces. We're going to place that on one side of the hinge. And we're not going to go all the way down to the bottom, but I'm just going to place glue on my hinge about halfway up. Well, I guess I should say halfway down. Not all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so can you see how I did not go all the way to the bottom? And the page that has the 1/2 inch tucked underneath, I'm going to line that up onto the hinge. And you can see I did the other pages and they did not line up because I wasn't paying attention. Darn it. And then I'm just going to give that a burnish. And you really have to give it a firm one at where those 1/2 inch pieces are so that they lay down. And you can, if you want, put a clothespin on those for a while. I'm just going to use my fingers to pinch. Okay. So now we're going to attach the other side of the hinge. And what you're going to do is you're going to put glue on the 1/2 inch pieces and the top of the hinge piece. And when you line it up, you're going to make sure that your paper goes all the way to the top to meet the front. Okay, so I'm using my fingers to kind of guide me to make sure that they are level at the top. So I'm going to put glue on the hinge, or excuse me, on the fold. And the top of the hinge piece down here. I hope that's enough. Okay, so I'm going to place this on, but I'm going to line it up at the top first, like so, and using my hands as a guide. And once that's on, I'm just going to follow through on down and burnish that real well. Then I have more room in my pockets. I got some glue oozing out, which I don't mind because I just want to make sure it seals all the way to the edge. Okay, and it's going to lay down flat like it's supposed to. And I'm just going to go over that several times. Okay. So now I have that opening, so it'll be easier for me to put a paper in and have it hold on to it. not being too tight. Okay. So one of the elements on the first page, I'm just doing, I'm going to put paper on the front, and then I want to put this on, and it will become a pocket. And then when you open it, you've got a little tiny pocket here, and then you have room for a 2x3, or you can do journaling, and then it's going to be open at the top. Okay. So I'm going to show you how I made this. I had to go back and add hinges. So what you're going to want is a 8.5 by 5.5 inch piece of paper, 8.5 by 5.5. And I did use the actual pattern paper. I did not use the cards, the regular artisan cardstock. Okay. And this we're going to just put in our trimmer and score it in half. So that would be 4 1/4. There it is. Okay, and that's all we have to do for that. And then let's go ahead and fold it. Now you might have seen these made before, so this is not my original idea. Might be Stampin' Up. I don't know. Okay, so here again, this is what it looks like. So I did some layering of papers. This was a frame. All right, so the easiest way that I was shown is that you get a 3x3 square paper. And you're gonna measure over 5/8 from the bottom right and 5/8 down from the upper left. So what I did was I laid my ruler down at 5/8 and put a little tick mark. And then I turned it one turn, so that I'm looking, this is the top right here, and I turned it, went over 5/8, put a dot there. What we do then is we're going to place it on the front of the card so that it lines up in the upper right-hand corner. I'm turning it so it's easier for me to see. You're going to take your pencil. My pencil is where? And starting at the dot, draw your line over. And starting at the dot, draw your line down. So you have the letter L, like so. And we're going to take our blade and cut down and over, not all the way through to the top and the side, but where the line starts here and where the line ends here. So I'm going to open up my card. I'm going to get my ruler and my blade. And I'm going to line it up. And I'm going to go through it a couple times. Just to make sure it goes all the way through. And then I'm going to turn it and do the same thing. Oh, that's not all the way. Maybe I'll do it this way so you can see it better. And let's see, let me just go all the way to the edge there. Yep, okay. So that's what we have. And now we're going to take this bottom right hand, or the bottom left hand corner, and we're gonna flip it over and line up that piece like so and press these down, and I'll show you that again. So then you have that square, and that's where I decorated with, by using the cardstock, it looks a little bit different, but by using pattern paper, it adds a lot. Okay, so it was like this. We had cut the L, and I'm going to push the bottom left out, and then I'm going to lay it down so I see my square. You can kind of look at the sides here, and then I burnished these two. Then you're going to want to glue these down. So I'm going to put glue just on this side and this side so that it doesn't flap around. Okay, and then I put layers. I need to put a little bit more glue here. And then I put a mat, and then the, where'd it go? I put a light blue mat. This piece was 3 by 6, and I scored it on the 6-inch side at 3 so that I have a little place to journal or add pictures. Just added a little bit of the border strip sticker. Took a piece of scrap paper that was 1.5 by 4, I believe, and just glued it on 3 sides so it became a pocket. And I used some of the ephemera pieces to put something on the back. Used my glitter paper on the front with a frame, left it open at the top so that we can put a picture in. Okay, now I want to be able to attach this and make it a pocket, so I did not want it to be flat. So once you have this made, flip it over, and you're going to need some, we used to do this all the time when we made boxes. So I took some 1-inch strips. So one is 1 by 5 3/8, and we might have to go back and trim. And with the 1 inches across the top, score it in half. So you want 2 of those. I have them at 1 by 5 3/8. And then this one I'm probably going to have to trim, but right now it's at about 4 3/8. So it's 1 by 4 3/8, and we're going to score it in half with the 1 inch across the top. And then we're going to burnish these. Okay. And we'll attach them to the back of that card so that we can have a pocket. So I'm going to put the long ones on first. So the crease goes to the outside, and you want to measure it first, and that is about the right length. So I'll put glue on one side. And again, we want it to have the crease on, for this side, it's crease to crease. So I want the crease on the outside so that it opens toward the inside. And we want to go all the way to the edge, like so. Okay, so it opens to the inside. Do the same thing on the opposite long side. So the crease is to the outside. Do a dry fit first before you do that, just to make sure it's the right length. All the way to the edge. And now for the bottom, we don't want the full length. So I'm just going to cut my piece so that it's in between these pieces that are glued down. So right now it's too long. I just want it to go from the 1/2 inch to the 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to use my finger as a guide. Trim off that excess. And then it should fit in between the two pieces we just glued down. And this time it's going to have the crease to the bottom and open to the top. All right, so now we can glue that to our page. So you just have to remember, you're going to put pattern paper on first. So I'll put my pattern paper on. Then I'm going to glue the 1/2 inch pieces more toward the bottom so I can have a tag coming out the top. Okay, and that will be the front of page 1. So once you put the 3 pages in, all 3 of them then will have an opening on the right-hand side. And so what we're going to do then is make these inserts where you slide this in, and so the back will have a flap with a pocket on it. And then on the inside, you can just put your paper, just make sure it's flat so it can go into the pocket, and just use it for a place for pictures. So this, everything is flat for the most part on the inside, but I did, when I glued this paper down, I did leave it open so I could put a little piece of the ephemera in there. So I just used a 4x4 here and then cut the yellow glitter paper so that it fit on the top and bottom. Okay, so just do the front and the back of the long side flat, and then the pockets on the front. So let's go ahead and look at the dimensions. Here's one of them that I've done, and then the other one looks like this. Okay, so pretty simple. So the pieces that you're going to need, all of the inserts are 9x7 and 7/8, so you'll need 3 of those. 3 that are 5 1/4 by 4, which will be the pocket, and then 3 that are 3 3/4 by 6. That's the tag. Now originally I did 6 3/4, but to save paper, it probably makes sense just to make them 6 inches long instead. So scoring is super easy. Let me add a little light here. You're going to place this 9 inches across the top, and you're going to score it. Just one score is needed, and that's at 4 3/4. And this paper is thick, so I am going through it a couple of times. Okay, put that one aside, and then take the one that is 5 1/4 by 4. Oh, that's not it. 5 1/4 by 4. And the 5 1/4 inches is across the top. It's a pocket, so we're going to score it 1/2 on each of the ends here. So then also at 4 3/4. Rotate it 1 time and score it 1/2. So then when it's 4 inches across the top, 1/2. And that's all the scoring. So the pockets, we always miter the top. And then we take out the square at the bottom at an angle. And then go ahead and burnish that. Okay. And burnish your large piece, the actual insert. So it's the long side that will go into the book, the page. So let me show you. Okay, so on this one, the backs of the pages I'm doing flat. Okay, we already went through this one. And so the long side will go inside of the pocket. And then the backs will all have the flap with the pocket. Okay, so that's what we're working on. So with your short side opening, or at the top, and it's opening to the right, we're going to place the pocket on the bottom, and it should line up perfectly there if you measured right. So put your glue on all 3 sides. Okay. And give that a burnish. So flat is going to be important for this insert just because of where it's going in the pocket. Okay, the tags. Now I have a punch that does an angle cut, but it's not enough. I like my tags, this tag, to have a little bit more of a slant. So I'm going to line this up on my board here and use the grid. And I'm going to measure over 1 inch and down 1 inch, and I will cut at an angle. So then I need to do the other side too. So I'm going to flip it upside down, line it up on my grid, and go over 1 inch and then 1 inch that direction. So then we'll slice them here and here. Okay, so we'll line up that in the channel of our cutter. And then you're gonna want to erase your marks. Okay, and there's your tag. And then you put your paper on, punch a hole, put your ribbon in, and then I did add a flower at the bottom of all of my seam binding pieces. Okay, and then this will go just like so. And you can decorate the inside any way you want. Okay, now there is on the back of the second page, I did add a pocket. So on this one, I just did a place for a mat, and then this is just decorative. This pocket you'll need a piece that's 2 by 9. And then you'll put the 9 inches across the top and score it 1/2 on each end. Then rotate it so the 2 is across the top, score it 1/2. So your pocket ends up being 1.5 by 8. Okay. Now inside of this pocket, when I was in Utah, she had some dies in the store. She doesn't sell them online, but they did come from Country Craft Creations, and they are like a Stanley tumbler. And so I'm going to cut a couple of those and put inside of this to make it look like glasses of lemonade. So that's what'll go here. So we'll still need to come up with something for the front of page 2 and then do page 3, but we have our inserts ready. I don't think I'll put, to kind of keep the book somewhat like uniform, I'll have the back page 3 be similar to this first page, have the second page different, and then this one I'll just probably on this one put the white piece over here and then just kind of rotate where I have the pattern paper. Okay, so now it is time to do the fronts of page 2 and 3. So this book is going to be an easy book, but it's going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. It's super cute. I think people are really going to love the layout and how cute the cover is. So, all right, so let's prep our paper for the front of page 2 and 3. For the front of page 2, we're going to do another feature. We'll put the pattern paper on the base page first, and then we're going to put this element on. And so you'll need a piece that's 10 5/8 by 5, a piece that's 10 1/4 by 3 1/4, and a piece that's 1 by 1.5 by 3. Okay, so let's work with the large one. And so the one that's 10 5/8 by 5, you're going to place the 10 5/8 inches across the top, like so, and you're going to score it at 5. Okay. The piece that is 3 1/4 by 10 1/4, you're going to place the 10 1/4 inches across the top, score at 4 3/4. The piece that is 1.5 by 3, you're going to place the 3 inches across the top, score at 3/8, turn it around and do it at 3/8 again. And because we want some flexibility in the paper, and this is pretty thick paper, I'm going to now score at every 1/8 inch all the way from the first score to the last score. So every 1/8 inch. And I'll probably come back and do them a second time, but just doing it once first. That's every 1/8 inch. Okay, so it looks like that. And I'm just going to kind of roll it so that it's more flexible. And I'm going to do it one more time, but this time I'm going to flip it over and do every 1/8. Oops, 1/8. This is thick paper, that's why I'm thinking it's going to help. Okay, and I'm just kind of rolling it back and forth. And I did not, I'm missing one right here. Okay. So let's burnish the score marks. Now, the way we scored it, it's not going to be exactly one on top of the other. You're going to see that there is a little bit of a border. One side is larger than the other, or longer than the other, on both of these pieces. It's longer. So I'm just making sure it lines up side to side. Okay, and then we already did our rolling, but now we're going to bend one of the 3/8 inches back and the other end the 3/8 inches up. Okay, like so. Down, one up. Let's go back to our large piece. And when you open it up, the long side I have at the bottom, the short side's at the top. On each of these, we're going to be taking, working with 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to score 3/8 of an inch on the left and 3/8 inches on the right. And then on the long end, we're going to cut off 3/8 inch on the left and 3/8 inches on the right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do my scoring. So it's 3/8. This is the short side, the shorter edge. So 3/8 here to the score mark. 3/8. It's at 5. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I'll use my trimmer. Maybe I'll use my trimmer. And I'm going to cut off 3/8 of an inch on the bottom. So let me get that lined up real quick. Let's see what's going to be the easiest way to do this. My trimmer, that one doesn't work. So let's see. I'm going to have to use a different one. I have so many different trimmers to choose from. So I'm going to use this one. Okay, and I want 3/8 of an inch off. So I'm going to cut it to the score. And then I'm going to do the other side. 3/8 of an inch off to the score. We're going to cut the 3/8 inches off just at a slight miter. Okay. So it looks like that. And I'm going to go ahead and just slightly miter the top just a little bit. Okay. And let's go ahead and burnish those 3/8 inches on the top. And I'm going to fold it to see if it lines up right, because I might have to do some rescoring just to make sure it lines up okay. That should work. And we're going to place this piece in between those two score marks. We don't want them to get in the way of those scores, like that. But we want this at the end. We want to line it up with the end of this bigger piece. So if I go to the score mark, mine doesn't line up exactly right. So I'm going to move it down just a hair. Then we're going to need this piece that we did, and we're going to put glue on one of the 3/8 inches, and we're going to glue it to the top of this smaller card. So I'm putting glue here. I'm going to place it in the center. Put my glue back together here. So I have glue, and I'm going to go to the center. Okay, give that a chance to dry. So I glued this on top of the shorter piece on the side that doesn't open. Okay, then I'm going to place that in the center, lining it up at the bottom here. I can't see if it's centered. I need more light. About right there. Okay, and then I'm going to put glue on this piece right here, the 3/8. And I'm going to close the flap here so that it connects with that 3/8 inch piece. Give it a second to dry. And then, it might not be quite ready yet. I still see a little bit of wet glue. And then we'll glue the 3/8 inch pieces down next. Okay. Bring that down. Burnish it. And let's give that a chance to dry also. Okay, and then we'll put pattern paper here, and then we can slip a piece underneath here. And I'll open this just in a second, but I'm also gonna do a pull tab. So I'm gonna use a punch. You can use 1-inch circles, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut the tab so people know to pull it. Again, 1-inch circle punch would work. You don't need one at all if you don't want to. And I'm going to end up gluing that here. Okay, so I'll have to wait until I put, I think I want, do I want pattern paper or saying? Do I want the paper on top? I guess I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. Let's see. Yeah, but still, I'm going to get clips here so it's good and stays. Give it a chance to dry here. Okay, and then what we're going to do is, this will be on the front of page 2. So we'll put our pattern paper on first, then this will go in the center, and we'll be able to pull up, and we'll see the different, we'll be able to use it for mats for our pictures. Okay, so that's what's going to be on the front of page 2. And I will come back and show you after I have it decorated. And then all we need is the front of page 3. And then that's it, because we've already done the backs. Oh, here's those cups using the die that I am putting in here, these little pockets, putting them at an angle, like so. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and put pattern paper on here, and then I'll come back and show you. All right, last page on the front, and this is going to be an accordion type fold front page. And so you're going to need just 2 pieces, and those 2 pieces are going to measure, let me write it down, I didn't write this one down. You'll need one that is 5.5 by 12 and one that is 5.5 by 11. Those are the only 2 pieces that you're going to need. And the scoring is pretty simple, so let's do that. Let's start with the 12-inch piece, and with the 12 inches across the top, score at 4, score at 7.5, and score at 11. Okay, the piece that is 11 inches, you're going to score at, let me do this, 3 inches, 6 inches, and 8.5. Okay, and we'll be combining these 2 pieces together. So the one that is 12 inches, we're going to be doing accordion, so forward and backward. And so with the 1 inch on the left-hand side, that's going to go to the front. And then we just alternate. The next one will go to the back. And then the other one will go to the front. Okay, so that's what we have so far. The 11-inch piece, okay, this is going to be attached like so. So we want the first score, we're going to move it to the left. Then we'll move the next score up toward the right. And the last one goes back to the left. And then we'll attach these 2 by gluing that 1-inch piece to the front. And then we'll put a piece of ribbon here and one in the back so that it will tie shut. And then we'll put that on our book. Here. And if you want, we can just glue it on 3 sides so that we can put a tag in it, which is what I did with this one. So I glued it on. I forgot to tell you, I ended up adding a front flap for more either photos or journaling. So this is 3 1/8 by 4 1/4, and then I just scored it in half. That's a lie, by 8 1/2. So 3 1/8 wide, and it was 8 1/4 long, and I scored it at 4 1/4. Let me say, I could be lying. Hold on. 4. So it's 4 1/8 and 4 1/8. That's 8 1/4. So let me write that again because I keep screwing it up. If you want to add this front flap, you're going to need one that is 3 1/8 inches wide and 8, I almost did it again, and 1/4 inches. And I scored this one at 4 1/8. And that's how I got the flap. Okay. And then you could just glue this one on 3 sides too and put another tag if you wanted, but I didn't want it to get too thick, so I didn't do that. And then I did end up just gluing the back on 3 sides so I could add another tag. Okay, and there you go. So now the last one. And I think I'll end up just gluing it on 3 sides also. So what I need to do is this 1-inch flap, I'm going to attach like so. Okay, so I'm going to put glue on the underside of that 1 inch. Okay, and I'm going to lay this on top and make sure it's lined up and burnish that. And a lot of these are just going to have white paper for pictures. Okay, and then before you put your pattern paper on, decide what ribbon you want. I'm going to probably use the yellow seam binding, and I will glue a piece here, and then I'm going to glue a piece to the bottom so that I can tie it here. Okay, so cut a piece, I don't know, about, let's make this one 10 inches. And then we'll glue that about 1 inch in and at the center. And then you're going to want to glue one on the back, and you don't have to go all the way in. So that one is about, they're both about 10 inches long. Okay, and then now you just have to cut your mats, and then you have a place for a lot of pictures or journaling. Okay, so now it's just a matter of covering it, gluing it on 3 sides, putting it on your book, and you can put another tag inside. Okay, so ribbon first, then mat.